On a summer day, a fall cool whisper just happened to hit State College this morning, and the Hardcore Penn State Football podcast returned. A lot to discuss, from a handful of commits to two pivotal-ish players being dismissed from the team. Michigan, in fact, did cheat, and Penn State's fall camp has officially started. We have some notes for you. All that and more in this week's episode. See you in a second. Shout out to Drunk Peace for saying howdy.
Howdy.
Appreciate that. I don't know why on Twitter you guys can't comment, so apologize for that. Don't know how to change that. I'll try to fix that for next time. But hop over to YouTube if you want to comment. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Cory Lestochi. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. How you doing today, Shawn?
Doing good, Cory, and really happy to be back with you. You missed a little something in the introduction. Something else happened. Cory got married.
I did.
So congratulations to Cory.
Appreciate that, Shawn.
Lovely wedding. But yeah, everything's been good with me. How have you been? It's our hiatus.
Very good. Yeah, I've actually had to travel quite a bit. I had to fly into Savannah when that Hurricane Debbie was taking place, so that wasn't the most fun thing I've ever had to do. Had to go up to Wisconsin for a little bit, scout out Camp Randall Stadium, and but I'm home for this week, so I'm gonna enjoy it. But
you see Camp Randall?
No, I wasn't even close. But
okay.
But really excited, Shawn, to talk about Penn State football. And if I could, I'm going to take the screen for a second. See if I can make myself a little bit bigger here. And then, Shawn, after I do this, I need to remind myself to plug in my computer because I did not plug it in. But first, I wanted to just say something here to start things off. And maybe I'll just leave it on the screen. So, obviously a very busy summer for me. Wanted to officially apologize to all the hardcore Penn State football listeners and fans out there. You know, we pride ourselves in not taking an off season, and this year was remotely close to kind of an off season for us. And while I don't apologize for the reasons, I do apologize that we were not as consistent as we would have liked to be throughout the summer. Doesn't really change anything as far as going into the season, but wanted to just say, hey, we're back. We're ready to rock and roll, and really excited to start the season off. So appreciate your patience, and let's do this thing.
Yeah, you'll be seeing a lot of us in the next few months. We'll be going back to twice a week very soon. So believe me, by the time October rolls around, you'll definitely have your fill of us. And hopefully, if we're doing our jobs right, you'll want more of us. So
unlikely.
So we're really here, guys. It's right around it is. You never really know when to say it's right around the corner, but it is right around the corner. When
I would
training
say
camp starts and I start seeing little kids playing baseball on my TV on ESPN, Little League World Series, that means we're here. So
I would even venture to say, yeah, like not even right around the corner. Like it is officially here. Sorry, as I'm plugging in my computer here.
Yeah.
Literally here. You know, I wanted to say one other thing because we'll just drop this news because why not? Season preview, Shawn, I wanted to talk to you at some point about maybe like the intangible part of our season preview and when we wanted to maybe do that. I know I'll break the news now. We will be doing a joint season preview with Landon Tangwa. We'll do the offense or defense on his show. We'll be doing either or on our show with him. So he reached out to us. He's been doing his own podcast now for, I don't know, 8 months or so. And so anyway, very excited to be working with him on that. And we're going to record next week. So we'll see kind of when it all pops out, but we'll have that out in the next week or so as far as a true season preview. The intangible side, Sean, as far as like our season predictions, we like to go through our records. We like to go through like players and what awards they might win for our Hardy's Award. We'd like to go over the polling results that I need to post on X at some point this week. We got to find the time for us to maybe do that. It doesn't need to be a crazy long show, but we'll have to find that at some point.
Yeah, we will definitely get that. And then the season's here.
Season's here. And we'll have a West Virginia preview probably that Wednesday night. Sean, you'll be at the beach, but we'll record your portion of your preview and anything else you'd like to say. I think I'll probably bring on somebody onto the show as a guest. I would like to get back to the guest pickers again if we can. And we will also be doing our Big Ten Pick'em yet again. So a lot of fun stuff just on the horizon.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to some more people. Like you said, guest picker is kind of a cool thing we started in 2022, and then it's continued all the way through. And I think pretty much every week we've had one. So something that we've done a good job keeping up on, especially like shout out to Cory. He's usually the guy that finds those people. So
yeah, and just full transparency, we didn't do that for a little bit just because my Wi-Fi was really becoming an issue. But now I've moved, I have better Wi-Fi. I feel more confident bringing people back on the show again. Didn't want to be bringing guests on the show and then having some technical difficulties. So that was just full transparency, the delay there. Sean, I think we just start with the bad news and we just get that out of the way first. And that is Penn State dismissed, and then the university, I don't know if I guess expelled is the correct word, 2 players from the football team, 2 defensive players, defensive end Jameel Lyons and linebacker Kavion Keys, 2 sophomores that were not going to be starters this year, but had a bright future at Penn State and will make an impact, if not this year, next year, as far as starting capabilities go. I think Kavion Keys and Jameel Lyons were going to play a considerable amount of snaps this year. And Sean, as you know, I once touted that Jameel Lyons was going to be a future first-round pick. So a huge loss from that perspective. I will say this before I turn it over to you. The reason for why that has happened has not officially come out yet. I think a lot of people that probably listen to this podcast and are crazy about Penn State football probably know why, although we had some DMs about it. We're not going to say what it is until it's public. We're definitely not going to break that news. But I will say this. If the speculation, if the rumors are true, which we've heard from multiple people that it is, good riddance. Not surprised that there was a zero tolerance to what had happened. And for anybody that's like, oh, Franklin's not serious about winning championships because he's getting rid of kids right before camp starts, you might not want to be saying that. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on it, Sean. I'll let you wrap things up as far as that issue is concerned.
Yeah, in a situation like this, where have we heard whispers? We have, and like you said, I'm sure a lot of you have. We wouldn't be responsible, breaking something or bring something up that we had heard, because I don't know about Cory, like I know next to no details, even if it is what we think it is. So, it has nothing to do with Franklin not being serious or No, from what we've heard, but we'll leave it at that. From a football point of view, yeah, Jamil Lyons, he was going to play a lot this year, more than he did last year, for sure. Even though I felt like for a true freshman edge guy, he played a lot. And he was going to be a starter for Penn State in the likelihood of 2025. So, football side of things, yeah, it's a big loss. And Kavion Keys is too, because Kavion Keys is a guy, really, since he was in high school, that we were talking up. And then I remember going to bowl prep, and you kept hearing his name come up from Curtis Jacobs singled him out actually in one of his interviews that he's going to be a big time player here. But just obviously didn't work out. And yeah, it's a loss. And I think when you look at what it means for the team, linebacker and edge, the depth isn't ideal. It's okay, but when you're relying on a guy like Smith Vilbert, who is healthy right now, but hasn't played a game since New Year's Day 2022, and Zariah Fisher's coming back from an injury. Yeah, you love the three top guys.
Keon Wiley injured.
Keon Wiley's injured. Yeah, I mean, and you love the three guys you got at edge, up top with Abdul Carter, Denai Dennis Sutton, and Vanover. After that, you're relying on some injury-prone guys, so you might need some young help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Penn State guy on YouTube says Max Granville gets some reps. I was going to mention that in the camp notes, but since it brought up right now, yes, Max Granville reclassified and got on campus. James Franklin said a couple weeks ago that kind of surprised, didn't really know that was all going to happen until it happened. But getting Max Granville on campus, he said he has flashed a couple times. But again, realistically, how much can you expect from a true freshman? There's other guys out there. Mason Robbins is one guy I'm kind of curious about. And then we always talk about, Vanover. But you're right, Sean. Like, depth is a concern. You have some really players you think you can count on, but depth is a concern as far as injuries and whatnot. And linebacker, if it wasn't already obvious, now it definitely is. Like, Tony Rojas needs to be Tony Rojas, and then you hope everything else kind of works out. Just again, kind of motivates you more to go to a true 4-2-5 as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, and then it's going to be interesting to see what we do with Abdul Carter too, from a depth perspective. And Franklin actually said at Big Ten Media Day that you're going to see Carter play you're going to see Abdul Carter play some linebacker too. So I'm interested to see what exactly Tom Allen does there, because we are kind of lacking for depth at both spots. But and we'll get more into that when we get to camp notes though.
Yeah. Don't want to completely spoil the lead. Let's jump to recruiting. Not usually when we talk a lot about recruiting. It is flip season officially. But we did miss quite a bit in the last couple of weeks while I was out. So, Sean, why don't we start with the 2025 class and work our way to 2026, and then, surprise, if you hadn't heard, we do have a 2027 commit as well. Sean, you're kind of the recruiting guru here. We'll kind of go with your lead. Who would you like to speak about first?
Yeah, let's go with Cam Smith, not the golfer. Cameron Smith, the linebacker. Penn State was able to flip him from Manny Diaz. He's the guy that was on Penn State's radar. Obviously, Manny went to Duke. He was going to follow Manny to Duke, but Penn State had stayed on him. And obviously, he felt comfortable enough and commits to Penn State. I had mentioned I think it was either last show or the show before, that I would like to see another linebacker here. Got the other linebacker. We're just talking about linebacker depth. And next year, I mean, we could be losing Kobe King, could conceivably go. And Abdul Carter, I know he plays edge, but he also will play a little bit at linebacker. So I think this is a nice addition. And you watch him play. He does. What impressed me with him was he covered a lot as a linebacker. They moved him around quite a bit. It's a St. Joe's Prep guy. We've talked about St. Joe's Prep before. Penn State historically has not done well recruiting there for whatever reason. We haven't gotten a commit there since John Reed, which is almost 10 years ago. So it's kind of inexplicable to me why Penn State doesn't recruit better there. But maybe this could be the start of good new trend here.
Yeah, you pretty much took my talking point, and that was the St. Joe's Prep one because that never happens. 6 foot, I wanted to mention that 6 foot 200, so a little bit on the lighter side of things. Not that Penn State, well, we'll talk about that with Nolan Rucci, but Penn State has no problem getting some weight added to some of these guys. But height is one thing that makes you think a little bit, but otherwise, really, really, I mean, I don't want to go down the notion that like Penn State was struggling in dominating the state, which they were. I don't care what people say, but getting another top 10 guy back is always a good sign. And the St. Joe's Prep point, I'll just say, I don't want to blow this out of proportion, but if Penn State lands a couple St. Joe's Preps guys the next couple years, you can look back at this flip as kind of the start of it. I don't care how good Cam Smith is. That's a huge win for Penn State. So I'm not saying, go crazy yet. I'm just saying you might want to, bookmark that for a later point.
I think as long as we have Deion Barnes on staff, we're gonna get back into St. Joe's Prep. And
yeah, I mean, look at Emotep, right? Like they didn't get the best players out of Emotep, and I know they just missed out on one, but they weren't even in Emotep for a while there. So it just, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but the one defensive end was the first one that kind of broke that, right? Who's the guy who got caught for gambling in the NFL?
Shaka Toney.
I don't know if he was necessarily the first one to commit to Penn State from Emotep, but he was up there, and they've done better since.
Yeah, Shaka, and then went through a little bit of a lull. And like I said, Deion Barnes, guys, is a stud, and he is getting some national attention already. And if he could turn out another elite year on his defensive line, we're probably going to have to be holding some schools back because they're going to be looking to scoop them up. But yeah, we are blessed to have him, and Franklin definitely made the right move there, hiring him from within.
Oh, no doubt about it. Appreciate all the engagement on YouTube today. A lot of people commenting and whatnot. It really makes the show a lot easier. So appreciate that. Sean, I want to throw a curveball too before we go to the next guy, just because Stephen Keel asked the question. Thoughts on a Utah wideout going to visit Penn State? Any thoughts on that wide receiver? I'm not, I'm out of the recruiting game. Do you know who he's referring to?
Yes. I want to say his last name Mead, I believe. But yeah, I would temper expectations a little bit just because it's so hard to get a guy out of Utah. But I mean, we're in it. So, and if you get a visit here, and I know like I said, I've only looked into him a little bit, and I know he's interested in some schools all over the country. So maybe travel isn't that big of a deal to him. Obviously, if he's even considering Penn State, that shows you that he's at least willing to look beyond the old Pac-12 country. And yeah, I mean, we need a receiver. We're going to talk about one that we got in just a minute here. But yeah, we need. I came into this recruiting cycle saying we need at least 4 receivers.
Is it Miles?
Miles, that's what it is.
Okay.
Yep.
5-star guy.
Yep. So I mean, yeah, you go after him with everything you got.
Looks like he's down to a top 10, including Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Miami, Michigan, Ohio State, A&M, USC, and Utah.
1 in 10.
Offer came officially on July 20th.
Yeah, and the thing with having a top 10 as well, a lot of things could happen. So I think it would be big for the staff even to get him on campus. And I know that sounds a little bit like defeatist attitude, but I mean, this is going to be a tough pull, I think. But you never know. That's why you try. Shoot.
And then he had one more question for you. Malachi Goodman.
Yeah.
Any updates on him?
I haven't heard a lot about him lately. I know Penn State's still in on him. He's the offensive lineman. I know Penn State's still in on him. As last I heard, we're sitting okay, but I haven't heard a whole lot, to be honest with you.
Last thing I see here, USC, he visited USC on June 21st.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a whole lot of action.
Seems pretty quiet.
Not that I know.
Seems pretty quiet. Penn State guy said that Auburn is also in the mix there. All right. Back to the scheduled programming, Sean. Two more players that we need to discuss. Do you want to go with the one that's name is easier to say or harder to say?
Let's go with the easier one.
Okay.
So, yep, that's Kobe Howard from South Florida. Has been on Penn State's radar for a while, and I don't mean this dismissively at all. I think he's a good player. Penn State had other guys they were looking at. Not all of them ended up coming here, and Kobe Howard ended up. I believe one of the On3 guys said he tested for the staff on campus. He did well. Penn State gave him one of those committable offers, and he's coming to Penn State. You know, his recruitment reminds me a little bit of Peter Gonzalez's in that he had an injury, but when you watch him play, he looks impressive, and he does a good job. His route running kind of stood out to me when I watched him, and I always like seeing a guy like this get one of those committable offers and come to Penn State, because this guy, from all accounts, really wanted to come here. And sometimes a guy and it's important to focus on the guys you do get. And we've seen so many guys over the years that were quote unquote, plan B guys come here and shine. And I think a lot of that starts with really loving Penn State, embracing the culture, and being a good football player. And I think that's what we got with Mr. Howard here.
Yeah, and we are always a sucker a little bit for those guys, right? The guys that maybe if everything was perfect in the world of Penn State recruiting wouldn't have ended up at Penn State. But I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and say, those 3-star guys, often work out better than a 4-star or blue chip guy.
Yeah.
But I feel like every once in a while there's those guys that, well, make a huge difference in a football season, and they're a 3-star guy. And at this point, Penn State's taken any wide receivers that potentially could make an impact. And as far as blue chip prospects go and wide receivers, not really seeing a huge correlation in success with the blue chips versus the 3-star guys when it comes to wide receivers specifically.
That's a good point. We talk about this all the time. We've had so many 4-star receivers come through here, and for whatever reason, they're not really able to put it together. But I mean, I've seen a lot of Deion Butlers. I've seen a lot of Jordan Norwoods. Even a guy like Parker Washington wasn't that highly rated out of high school. So it's certainly not everything. And like I said, in Howard's case, he broke his leg, and that's a huge thing when you're a developing person in high school and your body's still growing at that point. Yeah, breaking your leg is a huge detriment to your development, and it does hinder things for you. But then
love when you give us the physiology side of things, Sean.
Trust me, I'm a doctor. But yeah, like that's a huge hindrance for your development, and I think he's poised to have a great senior season. He's at I always have such a hard time pronouncing this. Shamadan Madonna. Say that 5 times fast.
Just say it 3 times normally.
Yeah. And that that is a school that is huge in South Florida. I believe Jeremiah Smith, the number 1 recruit from last year, went there. He went to Ohio State. So he's used to playing with really good players, and I think he's poised to have a great season this year. And I think if he does have that great season, you could see him shoot up a little bit in the recruiting rankings.
All right, well, let's jump over now to the final player in the 2025 class that we needed to discuss, and that's on the defensive side of the ball.
Yes. Just want to make sure I get his. I just had his name here because I know I want to make sure I pronounce this correctly.
Yeah, that's why I passed it over to you.
Ivan Kamaju.
Sounds right.
Yep. Another Maryland guy, 6'3", 230. Played edge in high school, but kind of bounced around. I'm wondering if he'll end up at tackle. Tyler Calvaruso from 24/7 Sports seems to think he will end up moving inside. But he's quick, and Penn State has been after guys. We've had a lot of guys in this mold before.
Hakeem Beeman leg.
Yes, exactly. Hakeem Beeman, Kevin Givens, he's kind of more in that mold. So I think he probably ends up going inside and being that, fast dude on the inside. He's already 6'3", 235 pounds. So as Cory noted, we're pretty good at being able to put weight on guys. Zane Durant's another one, who I think was smaller when Penn State
definitely shorter.
Yes. So I think that's where he ends up. Again, very disruptive guy, and a fun tape to watch. So our pipeline in Maryland continues. We've recruited. I know we all kind of lament how the recruiting has gone in Pennsylvania a little bit. Cameron Smith definitely helps there, but we've recruited Maryland very well this cycle. So that continues.
Yeah, and solid defensive players in this class. I think he might fall under the radar a little bit more, but a guy I think that has a really huge upside. I don't think he's going to be on the field early, but you get to his 3rd year on campus, once he's put some meat on his bones, I think he could make an impact.
Yeah, and that's a story of being a defensive lineman, right?
Right.
It is
very rarely are you getting there and getting out there unless you're a complete freak like a Denai Dennis Sutton.
Yeah, Denai Dennis Sutton. PJ Mustipher was another guy who played early. Zane Durant played a little bit his freshman year too, but it's rare.
And he was another guy, like as soon as he got on campus though, like people were already talking about him. Like he flashed right away.
Yeah. And as we're getting closer to the season too, a little off topic, you're hearing more and more about Zane. So keep an eye on him.
Very excited about Zane Durant. Let's jump to the 2026 class where Penn State's currently number 2 in the country for whatever that means. I have Kevin Brown on my list first, so let's start with Kevin Brown. Offensive tackle, right now 2nd best player in the state of Pennsylvania from Harrisburg. 6'5", 270. One of the best prospects out there. What are your thoughts on Kevin Brown?
Yeah, I was eating some hors d'oeuvres at Cory's wedding when I heard that he committed. So that
was a pretty good day for recruiting, I believe.
Yes, we got another guy that we're going to get into as well. But Kevin Brown, from everything that I've heard, is going to be one of the best players in next year's class. One of the best offensive linemen, might end up being the best player that we get next year. And first thing that you watch is his athleticism, and I think that's what makes him stand apart. Like he has pro left tackle athleticism. There's that video going around of him jumping out of the pool.
Which is just incredibly impressive.
Yeah, when you're that big, especially.
It's just
he's a lot of man jumping out of that pool.
I remember like the first person did that, and like I don't even know who it was. I think it was like a Kansas football player or basketball player, and it was a big deal. Now I feel like people are doing like, oh yeah, like I can barely push myself or literally use both my arms and get out of a pool, let alone jump out of a pool. So that yeah, I'm always impressed by that.
I
Anyway.
just take the steps. I don't even. I'm not gonna attempt that. I'm not doing that. I end up hitting my face on the pavement. But yeah, Kevin Brown could do it, and he's also a very, very good football player. We talked about Pennsylvania. He is from Pennsylvania, and he's from Harrisburg. As we've said previously, you should never lose top recruits from the Harrisburg area if you're Penn State. Just shouldn't happen if you have an elite guy like an hour away from campus. And we didn't miss out on him, knock on wood, but he's gotten attention from so many schools already. And I think that he's going to be a guy. He is a guy that we're going to build this class around. So might end up being the best player in the class, but they're still young players. We still have to see how their junior, senior year go.
Yeah, I don't want to maybe get ahead of myself, but I mean, I could see him potentially getting that 5th star. Well, I mean, we'll see.
Yes, but very possible from everything that I hear.
It's nice when you look at this 2026 class that you already have maybe a cornerstone at offensive line, you have a cornerstone at quarterback. We've talked about Troy Hoon before, and potentially at running back as well with Messiah Minkins, who's been in the class for a long, long time. Do you want to go? I guess we got 2 wide receivers to discuss.
Yep.
Next, we can talk about those guys. Maybe talk about Rodgers. You want to go ahead with Rodgers?
Sure. Jazier Rodgers from Delaware. Cory. Yeah, I got a curveball for you.
Oh boy.
What all-time great Penn State wide receivers from Delaware?
Chris Godwin.
Very nice.
Only reason I know that is actually one of my buddies was at that wedding. I don't know if he was at your table actually. Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Went to the same high school as Chris Godwin.
Oh, about that.
And Josh, not a big football fan by any stretch of the imagination. When him and I started becoming friends, he was like, "Yeah, Chris went to my school. Is he any good?" And it was just so funny. I was like,
"He's all right."
He just had no idea.
Yeah, he was all right for us. But yeah, I feel very similar to how I feel about LeVar Keys that we're going to talk about next. Like the speed just stands out. He's already running in the 4.3s, and he's like 16 or 17 years old. And as we talk about on here, guys tend to get faster when they get to Penn State. And if you're already running in the 4.3s and you didn't even start your junior year yet, you're going to fly when you get here. And that's really what I see with him. Good change of direction too, which is important. As we talk about on here, sometimes there's a difference between speed and quickness, being able to stop and start. So yeah, if you haven't watched already, definitely go and watch Rodgers' highlight reel.
It's the definition of chuck it deep. His film.
Chuck it deep.
I mean, that's basically what he does I mean, I don't want to discredit him as far as a route runner or anything like that, but he can really stretch the defense vertically.
Yes.
Let's stick with wide receiver. Let's jump over to LeVar Keys. Penn State getting another commit out of DeMatha, which at this point is like brushing your teeth. It's just a habit. 5'9.5", Sean, which Rodgers is only 5'10", so I guess I should have said it when he said it too, but a little bit shorter.
Yeah, I think I could see him going in the slot. Tyler Calvaruso was actually talking about that in their pod, that he projects him as more of a slot guy. I tend to think the same thing. In 2026, we'll have 2 guys on the team named after LeVar Arrington, as LeVar Keys is also named after LeVar Arrington, not LeVar Ball.
I feel like you should rename your name. You should put your middle name as LeVar or something like that.
Maybe I'll contact Social Security.
What about Sean Plesny Kane?
Sean Paz.
That sounds pretty good if you ask me.
Yeah, not bad. But yeah, like I was saying, I do think he may project as more of a slot guy. Like you said, the DeMatha pipeline continues. I mean, if we want a guy from DeMatha, tend to come here. So, yeah, I think he ends up inside, and yeah, we need receivers still for 2026 as much as we do for 2025, and this is a good start with Keys, Rogers, and right now they're the only receivers we have, but that will increase.
Well, we like talking about wide receivers here, Sean.
Just like the offensive line in our first year.
We did not talk about Daniel Jennings yet. We'll go to the defensive side there. From West Virginia, 4-star guy, number 1 player out of West Virginia right now. Still inside the top 300. I guess you can tell people he's from Princeton, and he graduated from Princeton, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so Jennings is
it's the Princeton of the Southwest Midwest. I don't know is West Virginia considered the South? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No, I think it's Rust Belt, right?
Okay, it's the Princeton of the Rust Belt.
Rust Belt's so weird, like where it starts and where it ends.
The Coal Belt.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it, I think, because West Virginia is kind of its own thing almost.
It's its own armpit, if you would.
Sure. Because I wouldn't. It's definitely not Atlantic. It's kind of Rust Belty, but anyway. Yeah. Daniel Jennings is from Princeton, West Virginia. Can't remember the last guy we got out of West Virginia. I mean, whenever I say that, we probably got someone last year. I'm just forgetting. But I know that we've gotten guys from there in the past. He's more of a hybrid, may even end up at linebacker. He's kind of in a similar mold to an Abdul Carter, definitely not comparing them as players. But more of that role where it wouldn't be shocking if he ends up as a linebacker. But again, really good football player. As Cory stated, he's the number 1 guy out of West Virginia right now. And it's it's definitely part of the region, but you just don't, for whatever reason, we don't get too many guys from there. Cory, another trivia question. What famous receiver did not go to Penn State was born in West Virginia?
Randy Moss.
Randy Moss.
I'm on fire today. I just assumed so since he went to Marshall. I didn't know that to be fact.
He did go to Marshall.
I was just hoping.
Him and Chad Pennington were deadly together.
Yeah, he put up a lot, and I mean a lot, of stats at Marshall.
Yeah, there's a reason why a guy from
I don't know if he
Marshall
still
was
has
a Heisman finalist.
He probably doesn't have the NCAA record anymore for some stuff, probably just because of the way the offenses have changed and more games and everything like that. But I'm pretty sure he did have some of the receiving records all time there for a while.
Yeah, and imagine him in today's game.
Yeah. I was trying to find another commit from West Virginia.
Yeah, no one's coming off the top of my head. Maybe somebody out there knows. I'm sure they do. But I can't think of anybody right now.
Yeah, if somebody on YouTube wants to let us know. For the blog, he is on YouTube. Says, stuck with a layover in Denver for the next 90 minutes. Entertain me, no pressure.
We'll do our best.
We'll do our best. Denver's not a bad place to be stuck.
Denver?
The airport, yeah.
Isn't there a bunch of Illuminati stuff there?
There's definitely some conspiracy stuff there.
Yes, I do know there's. I've never been there, but I've heard it.
Are we good there on 2026? I think so, right?
Yeah.
I didn't really add anything myself to Daniel Jennings. Haven't got to watch his film yet, but not too worried about Barnes choosing a good defensive player there, but need to do a little bit more film on him. Also, it's 2026, so they just don't have my attention on August 11th, 2024. Sean, probably the least surprising thing of all time is Penn State's first commit in the 2027 class being a running back.
Yeah.
Yep. It's almost like if you want to play running back at Penn State, you have to commit while you're a sophomore in high school. Because there might not be room for you if you wait till your junior or God forbid, your senior year.
Maybe that's why they commit so early. I mean, very well could be because it's such a crowded room, and as long as Jaywan Sider's there, I think it will be a crowded room.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And, you know, they're able to recruit a lot because these guys don't all hang out forever, and some move on and, you know, transfer portal and whatnot. But you're always recruiting running backs. From good old McKeesport, Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh, I did see some Pittsburgh reporter pretty upset about this commit. And they were like, I thought this guy was going to be really good. You know, it was going to be all WPIAL. Is that right? WPIAL. Blah, 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 blah. So that guy and he's already pissed at Franklin for coming and poaching that player, even though it's 2027. So sounds like good things. Obviously, there's no rankings yet for 2027. He's a little bit on the shorter end. And I don't know if I even said his name yet. I should probably say that his name. Come on, spell. 5'9", 185. But I think we got a pretty good commit here from what I can tell. Again, very early on in his career.
Yeah, I would think so as well. I hear you on the running back part. And, you know, you look at his offer list already, too. He already has a Michigan offer, and he already has a Florida State offer. So he definitely already has national attention. Like Cory, you know, there's only so much you could say about him right now. He only has his freshman year. He did go to the WPIAL championship game. They played Aliquippa, and he played well. So definitely looks like a promising prospect. He wouldn't be if he wasn't. Penn State would not have let him commit early because you still need that offer in order to commit. So you may want to get in there as a running back early, but doesn't necessarily mean Penn State will let you. He's going to be a sophomore in high school, so let's not say that this is over as of yet. But you feel better about getting an early commit from a guy who's from the state. If it was a guy from Florida, you'd feel a little less great. But they're generally guys from PA, knock on wood, end up sticking through. Yeah, you just got to hope that his career continues to go on the right trajectory as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's a burner. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, we'll see what happens when he continues to develop. He's got a couple more years of development, so we'll see what size he puts on. I mean, this is not probably a great comparison, but I always think of like Tamir Robinson because he went from DB to linebacker to he might even play defensive end by the time, because he committed early too, and by the time, or maybe didn't commit early, but he was on Penn State's radar really early. And he kind of just continued to develop, and his position kind of changed. So see kind of what happens here. It's a little bit different with offense, but right now a burner. We'll see how he develops the rest of his game.
And he already runs with some power too, which is good.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens there. I had one thing I wanted to bring up. Steven on YouTube gave us the answer we were looking for. Tight end Brenton Strange from West Virginia.
Oh, nice pull.
Yeah, very good pull.
Do you see? Speaking of Brenton Strange, do you see Parker Washington's punt return yesterday?
No, did he take it? Did he house it?
He didn't. He took it 73 yards though.
Nice. I heard. I had
Their
saw something that
teammates in
Trevor
Jacksonville.
Lawrence. I heard something that Trevor Lawrence like provided him some really positive feedback as far as his development. Which that's actually a good segue, kind of, not really, but we're done with recruiting. To mention, how about Dan Chisena? Had like 6 catches, 60-something yards receiving for the Cardinals the other day. I mean,
Yeah, just sticks around, man.
where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, he's the guy that I wish. Was he a receiver his whole time at Penn State?
I think so. I mean, obviously he was a gunner, but yeah, I think he was.
Yeah, because he didn't play very much until his last year here. And I think it took him a while
Didn't
to
he
get
catch like a fake punt or something at one point?
Yeah, I think he was involved in a few things. Yeah, he played a little bit his last year, but I think when you're a guy that's tall and can run, you have a chance to make it, and you're a smart player. You have a chance to make it in the NFL as a special teams guy at the very least. And that's really what he's been doing.
Yeah, but yeah, and when he was at the Vikings at first, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was up in Minnesota.
You betcha. Some guys aren't in the league anymore, and he is. I love it. I'm trying to think if I've seen much else. I saw Theo Johnson got in a little bit of a tiff with Aiden Hutchinson.
It's a Big Ten crime.
Yeah, I think Aiden Hutchinson tried to like throw him, literally shug him off, and Theo didn't let go of him. So
yeah, and Chop didn't play in the first preseason game. He's fine, but he's been tearing up camp, and for whatever reason, they didn't decide to play him in the first game. He didn't suit up, so there might be some rest.
Have you heard anything about Olu?
No.
Which I guess is a good thing as far as an offensive line goes.
Yeah, sometimes no news is good news there.
I see a Twitter account, Take Flight Jets, said Olu Fashanu put on a clinic in pass pro yesterday after watching the film. His hand fighting is so advanced for a rookie. Watch how he punches and pulls his hands away to me. I'll retweet that just so someone else can see it.
Preseason debut too.
Yes, or was that the one-handed interception?
Yeah. So.
Olu earned highest PFF pass block grade on his preseason debut for the entire team. 0 pressures on 14 pass block snaps.
Oh. And that's one thing that we knew he'd be able to do immediately is help and pass pro. I mean, obviously he's got to develop a little bit more in run blocking. But pass pro, he's going to be able to protect the conspiracy theorists pretty early.
I'd also heard good things about Kalen King already as well.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me. I think Kalen King, I mean, we all know what happened last year, but he has ability. He could play. And I think he could play in the NFL. I'm still shocked that he went to the 7th round.
Kansas City beat writer Matt Derrick said that Hunter Norzet has been the most consistent backup center in training camp 22 hours ago. All of these people, by the way, that I'm saying these, I am retweeting these. So if you're following us on Twitter at Hardcore PSUFB, you'll see all these. You can follow up with them a little bit more. Sean, why am I blanking here? This is bad. It's a big bad. Right tackle. I can't think of his name at the moment.
Oh, Tanner Walls.
Thank you. That's awful. Just wanted to see if there's anything out of him. 19 snaps in his first game, both at left tackle and right tackle. And Taylor Kyles, who's the Patriots beat reporter, said looked light on his feet, mostly handled speed, power well, and was rarely caught off guard by a rusher's initial move.
interesting that he's playing tackle. I didn't know if they try to move him into guard or not. But that's great. And yeah, he's always had that athleticism too, and that started to show his last couple years at Penn State. And it's good to see it continuing to shine in the NFL. Johnny Dixon still hasn't been picked up by anyone, right?
We're going a little bit. That's okay.
Yeah, I know Johnny Dixon had
It doesn't
an
look like
injury. After the
his
Senior
Twitter
Bowl.
title says "Bet on me," and he tweeted on August 1st like a Dragon Ball Z dude, like chilling, like waiting. So,
I mean, somebody should pick him up. I don't know the details of the injury, but
yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy.
But I don't know how a guy that was as good as he was for most of last year, I don't know how he's not picked up yet.
One more random thought. I wonder how KJ Hamler is going to do with the Bills.
Yeah, the big thing with KJ, really since he was at Penn State, was just staying healthy. He came into Penn State, if you remember, he had that torn ACL, and then he had a couple concussions, and then when he got to Denver, he was dealing with injuries again. So I think if he could stay healthy.
He muffed 2 kicks and dropped a pass in his first game.
Because that's one of the ways that he could, make the team is with special teams. But muffing kicks, that ain't the way to do it.
Curtis Jacobs is on the Chiefs. Someone asked that question on YouTube.
Yeah.
He did also get drafted by the Defenders. Curtis Jacobs intercepted a pass during training camp the other day. And he was the first player to arrive at practice. And has been every day, it seems.
Good way to stick around.
So anyway, there's your random NFL update for you. If you're new to the show, we always do a little PSU in the NFL on our Monday show. Just so everybody knows, we don't usually record on Sundays. Usually we do Monday nights, Wednesday nights during the season. And that's what we'll get back to as best we can. So anyway, that's we usually talk about those on the Monday night shows, and then if anything happens on Monday Night Football, we'll catch up if it's that important. Let's transition, Sean, to reports from camp. We mentioned Max Granville already. We don't know if we mentioned too much else. I think we started talking about Abdul Carter playing everywhere. I can just say that real quick. They expect Abdul Carter to play all over the place. Kind of what I was expecting. Curious if he's a little bit more limited now with Jamil Lyons being gone. Zariah Fisher questionable.
Is that wedding, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm showing off now. I was about to sneeze. That's why. So I wanted to mention that. Let's stick on defense, Sean. Tony Rojas. I think we mentioned him a little bit. But Tony Rojas is even bigger and stronger. I think it was Devon J. Thomas, not Devon Ellies, but Devon J. Thomas now said something about how Tony Rojas is bigger, stronger, faster, and he's ready to go. So that's good to hear there.
Yeah. And a lot of what with Rojas last season, he played pretty well when he got in. There were a couple times he got caught playing too aggressive on read options. That's something that you're definitely going to want to get cleaned up in time for Garrett Green, because that's what Garrett Green does, is a lot of read options, and he will burn you as he did last season against Tony Rojas. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason why I thought he was the best guy in his recruiting class, and I think you're going to see it this year. And I think he is ready to take that leap forward. I don't think we would be moving Abdul Carter into edge if they didn't feel very, very confident in what Tony Rojas could do. And I still say I think he's next at linebacker U, and that this is gonna. I'm fully expecting a huge year from him.
Yeah, I think he could fly around the field. There's no doubt about it. I wanted to mention Tamir Robinson, because he's having a pretty good, as well as Kobe King. Both of them are having pretty good camp so far. Look, I'm just going to say it. The fact that we haven't heard anything about Tyler Elsdon in a while is a good sign.
Yeah. I've also heard a lot about Tamir Robinson. We really haven't heard much of anything about Elsdon. I think that tells me that competition from the last 2 seasons is pretty much gone, and Kobe King is the guy at Mike. And everybody else is a clear second or clear third. You might still see that war on the depth chart. I take that with a grain of salt. I think a lot of that is not saying this officially that I know, but I don't know officially. And I don't have any insider knowledge, but I am inferring that that's more or less to keep some guys happy. And I think sometimes it's a true war, like Kaytron Allen, Nick Singleton. That's a true either or competition. But I think sometimes things are solidified, but you have egos. You have to worry about the transfer portal. I think Kobe King is clearly the starting linebacker this year.
I agree. I 100% agree with that. And one thing I know, this year they're going to have to be able to communicate with Tom Allen on the sideline. One of the guys will be wearing the headsets. So Kobe King will also have that headset in there, which part of why Kobe King struggled, or why Taylor Elsdon was around a little bit more, was Kobe King's, intangible things, the speaking, the diagnosing things before snap. That's going to help him a little bit more in that regard, as well as having some great safeties behind him. So that should take one thing out of Kobe King's lap, man. Let him play fast. So that's Kobe King played some great ball down the stretch there, even last year.
I thought he was very good last year.
Yeah. Defensively, I have one more defensive comment. Safety Colin Dinkins. He had some good moments in the spring game. I know the safety room is stacked, but I think Colin Dinkins is going to get himself on the field a little bit, Sean. I think he's he's fast, and he seems to be instinctive, and a former walk-on, and Khalil Dinkins' brother has played his way into playing time. There's no doubt about it.
Think about a guy like him. Talk about having a chip on your shoulder. First off, you're a walk-on, and that's hard enough to be able to earn a scholarship. Secondly, you're Khalil Dinkins' brother, so you're kind of in a shadow. To overcome that and to make yourself, and he's going to be at least a contributor this year. I don't know if he'll necessarily start or not, but you hear a lot about him potentially playing a lot at the Lion. He played a lot at the Lion in the blue-white game, and I thought he did a pretty damn good job. That just tells me a lot about this kid and the way he plays and the way he handles himself, to be able to play well enough as a walk-on guy and as the little brother on a team, and to be able to get through that and he's going to be a contributor on one of the best defenses in the country.
Right.
Something I wanted to mention too about the defensive backfield, Terry Smith said athletically, there's not going to be a big drop off, and they may even be better athletically at corner.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sean, I don't know how I feel, because James Franklin said something similar about how they're reloading. They're not, what's the word? Reloading, not rebuilding.
Reload, not rebuild. Yeah. We
heard some good things even about O'Davian Collins.
Yeah. And I keep hearing things about him.
And he only had like 6 snaps last year. We've talked about AJ Harris enough. I think we all agree he's number one. But to say that, you just had, I guess technically Dixon didn't go, but you still have a lot of those DBs get to the NFL from last year's team. That's a lot to me. Now, are they just saying that because they got burned in the Ole Miss game? I don't know. But to me, as far as like this defense being like top 10 and maybe being one of the best in countries, is going to depend on the play of, like, say, a Cam Miller or whoever that number 2 corner is going to be. I think AJ Harris is going to be able to do it, but can the Cam Millers, the Zion Tracy's of the world, or whoever that's going to be, Kimber even, are they going to do enough? That I guess athletically they are going to have the ability to. We'll see how it all pans out. That's still a little bit of more of a question mark to me than say what Terry Smith is leading on there.
Yeah, keep this in mind too, guys. And we mentioned this a few times last season. One of the reasons our defense worked was because the corners were so good. And we were able to be more aggressive. We were able to pin our ears back a little more because we trusted the cornerbacks. Then you got to the Peach Bowl. You didn't have those corners. You didn't have Chop. You didn't have Manny. And the young guys, they got a bit of a baptism by fire. And that happens sometimes. And I think that there's a lot to learn from that. But in order for this defense to work, the corners have to be better. The corners have to be on that level of what we saw last season. If we want the defense to be near or at where we were last year.
Yeah, you don't have to protect or you don't have to defend for very long. I mean, the defensive front seven is going to get there, but you've got to basically make the quarterback not feel confident that he can throw the ball up there. And in the Peach Bowl, that was definitely not the case. Steven, we'll get to your offensive line questions here in just a second. I think that's all the thoughts I have on defense. I think before we go to offense, let's just hit on 2 special teams things. Caden Saunders in the lead right now for punt return job. Thought that was a little bit interesting. He was probably going to have it last year until Daquan Hardy just went off. And then the kicking game. Right now, 3-way battle. Everybody's kind of in the mix there. So, and I want to be very clear, Justin Lustig made it a point to say that he feels good about it, that they're all doing well. So it's not like the kicking battle where it's like, oh shit, who do we have? It's like we're feeling pretty good about it.
And I think that's how it was last season.
Yeah.
I mean, it ended up working out for us. Falcons was very good, but I don't think they realized till mid-season like the rest of us.
Sean, I already forgot. Is it Chase Meyer?
Yeah.
Okay. I always want to say Butler for some reason. And then punting, we haven't even heard anything. I think that's a good sign then that we're still in a good spot there.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll be fine.
All right, let's go to the offense. Now, I can answer Steven's question first if you want. He goes, how long until Cooper Cousins starts at center? I'll just say this. We are hearing a lot of good things out of Cooper Cousins. Drew Shelton said that Cooper Cousins called him or texted him at 11 o'clock, and Drew Shelton told him to go home because he was still at the facility. Devon J. Thomas mentioned that Cooper Cousins has that mindset of being the best ever at Penn State when it comes to offensive linemen. And he said, yeah, some people have that mindset when they first get to Penn State, but that he's actually backing up with his work ethic. So that's what we heard in the spring. It has continued so far this fall. Very excited about Cooper Cousins. I mean, he's been the leader since he first committed in this class a long, long time ago. So that's all good. To answer your question, I don't think he's ever going to start at center because we've also heard some really, really good things about Nick Dawkins, who continue to get better. And from what it sounds like is Kotelnicki and company really appreciate his leadership and vocal ability. And I think he's from a leadership perspective, and Sean and I love talking about leadership. From a leadership perspective, Nick Dawkins means a whole lot to this football team.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if Dawkins, and I think, is this the last year for Nick Dawkins, or does he have one more year left?
He technically may have one more year.
Yeah. But if he does end up going to the NFL, I think Cooper Cousins is probably your center next season. I do think I don't think he'll start this year over Nick Dawkins for a lot of the reasons that Cory stated. When I don't think it's any secret that we're looking for leadership, and you have a guy who has stepped to, by all accounts, has stepped up and been a leader. And I think, and hearing Andy Kotelnicki just sing his praises about, about a guy like Nick Dawkins, like being a guy that he looks to as an example for what he wants. I can't see him just unless he plays poorly, which I don't anticipate. I have a hard time seeing him sit so a true freshman could play. Do I think Cooper Cousins will play this year? I do. I just don't think it's going to be a lot at center, because you have to keep in mind centers usually don't come off the field all that often. So I think you might see him play a little bit of guard, even though we have quite a few guards, but I think you'll see him in the mix. I know he started on the quote unquote varsity squad at the blue-white game. We did have some injuries. We did have some guys that were getting some veteran rest. But he's going to factor in a guard. I just don't think it'll be centered this year too often. Maybe late in games if we're throwing a team out.
Yeah, and I had looked it up, but also the Penn State guy just mentioned that Dawkins, his first year was 2020, so he does technically get a COVID year if he wants it.
Yeah.
But he's been here. I mean, he would have been here for quite a long time by the time that's all done. I mean, theoretically, then wouldn't be graduating or leaving Penn State until 2026.
I used to be good with knowing eligibility, but the COVID year totally throws me off.
Yeah, well, this is like we're getting to the end of that, right? I mean, basically, if a player didn't redshirt, this is their last year. If they did redshirt that 2020 year, they still have one more year. But we're getting, assuming no other injury issues, then we're getting to the end of that. I'm gonna put you on a spot. Well, I guess Steven put us both on a spot. He was just curious. Right now, August 11th, who would your starting 5 be against West Virginia on the offensive line? I think we all agree Drew Shelton at left tackle. I think we all agree Nick Dawkins at center. And I think we all agree right guard is Sal Wormley. Really, the only two spots I think you can have some debate over is left guard, which could either be Vega Ione or JB Nelson, and then right tackle, which could be Anthony Dunca or Nolan Rucci. So, Sean, out of those two positions, where are you leaning right now for those two spots?
Yeah, right to left, I would go Rucci, Wormley, Dawkins, Nelson, and Shelton. So
interesting. So I'm gonna go the complete opposite. I'm gonna go right now. I'm gonna go Dunca, and I'm gonna go with Ione.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it very well could be, and I think they're all gonna play.
Right.
So you're gonna see all of them. I mean, every time Nelson is on the field, I like what I see. It's just staying healthy has been a bit of a problem for him.
Yeah, and he got caught, right? Because he could play both tackle and guard. It almost hurt him as far as playing time, although he got to play early sometimes. It also hurt him in the sense of he kind of got kicked out because he was kind of an in-betweener, whereas Vega has basically been able to bulldoze people at guard the whole time.
Yeah, Vega's a guard.
Yeah.
100%.
So he kind of got hosed a little bit there in that regard. And then, this is on my notes too, the Dunca Rucci battle. You and I were talking about it. We think they're going to end up, if any position's a position where they split reps during the beginning part of the season, that's going to be one. I could totally see them going 2 series each or something like that early on, and see just who does better. But I tell you what, like Nolan Rucci, I was going to mention it. Like he's been able to put on weight at Penn State and wasn't able to do it at Wisconsin, which I was just in Wisconsin. Every restaurant you can get cheese curds. Even the Mexican restaurant, you can get cheese curds. So I don't know. Nolan Rucci might be the only person in the world that has gone to Wisconsin and struggled to put on weight. I mean, I know he's not drinking beer and cheese curds every day, but the fact that he came to Penn State, again, maybe just a shout out to the strength and conditioning program to be able to get that weight to stick. I don't know what he was doing in Wisconsin, but that's pretty impressive that he wasn't able to keep weight up there.
Yeah. I don't know how that happens. Some guys just naturally have trouble putting weight on for whatever reason. But yeah, overall I do think you'll see all four of them. I think the right tackle spot, like you said, it'll be a little bit like how Caden Wallace and Big Slab Bryce Effner was in 2022, where they both played probably about an equal amount. Wallace probably played a little bit more when he wasn't. He did get hurt that year too, so when he wasn't injured, Wallace probably played a little bit more. I tend to think Rucci plays a little more only because of the experience. Now, he didn't really start much. I don't think he started at all at Wisconsin, but he did play. And I think the staff will take that into account. And keep in mind, this is a former 5-star guy. And one of the knocks on him at Wisconsin, there weren't a ton. I mean, obviously he didn't start, but the biggest knock on him was he just was too small. And I don't think he has that problem anymore from all the reports that we've had.
Yeah. No, and I think that's fine. Right? But we'll have to just kind of wait and see there. I mean, I would love a Rucci comeback story, right? Where he where it just, he goes from playing a handful of games, if that, at Wisconsin, and comes back and becomes a cornerstone. Like, that'd be great. So,
yeah. And it kind of works in the timeline, too, because Donka is only a redshirt freshman. I believe he kept his red shirt. And Rucci is more far along, I believe, is junior. So it would work out like that, too. Like, that's kind of what you want. That's the traditional model. But we shall see.
All right, well, we buried the lead enough, Sean. As soon as I knew this came out, I knew you were going to want to talk about it. Go ahead. Talk about your favorite wide receiver. Go ahead.
My favorite wide receiver.
I'm assuming you want to talk about a guy who's also a country. Maybe you didn't hear about this guy.
No. Well,
new wide receiver, last name is also a country.
Tysier Denmark. Yes. Got me there. In our group chat, I always send the Denmark flag, too, whenever I say anything about him. So you think I know. Yes, Tysier Denmark has been the talk of
I thought you were going to be chomping at the bit to talk about him, but
yes,
I guess not.
I don't know what I was thinking. Yes, everybody's talking about Tysier Denmark. We were wondering how much of an impact he would make because he did not enroll early. Ended up enrolling in the summer to Penn State, and that is definitely a wonderful thing to hear. And all accounts, he's gonna play. I think he may play more than any other true freshman. So we were hoping that he would be a quick adjustment. Again, there's also the mental side of it, just picking up the playbook, getting used to college life. I remember getting used to living on my own. I had trouble adjusting to college life myself. I could only imagine for a Division I college football player. And from all accounts, he's doing really, really well. So I'm not saying Tysier Denmark's going to start. I certainly don't expect him to start early in the season, but he's going to play. And I think he could definitely make an impact a little bit. And we comp them when we were recruiting him to Jahan Dotson. And Jahan Dotson played in his freshman year and ended up low-key helping to stabilize that 2018 receiving corps. And I think you're going to see that
really important part.
Yeah.
I mean, where they've been without Dotson during that time period there. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I was wrong because I was higher. Higher doesn't seem like the appropriate word, but a little bit more excited about Peter Gonzalez. And it seems like Denmark has, at least early indications, has at least gotten the attention of most people. So, I guess I was wrong.
Gonzo's going to be good too.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State really kind of needs more than one person. Last thing I wanted to mention, and just in general, like the wide receivers from what we're hearing seem to be a little bit more confident. We've talked, I don't know, constantly about the impact of Julian Fleming and his leadership impact and how he set the tone as from a role model perspective immediately. Now he's becoming more vocal, and people are wanting him to lead. And even Trey Wallace had mentioned that having a Julian Fleming in the room is big because they don't have a bunch of vocal guys on that side. And they have that there. And just Trey Wallace. I mean, Trey Wallace can stay healthy. He's probably your number one wide receiver. And so it'd be very interesting to see how this all plays out. But from the sound of it, people are very confident right now. And I know Penn State fans and listeners aren't going to put much weight on that until they see it, not just for a game, but multiple games. But sounds like people are feeling a little bit better about the wide receivers. Take that for what it is.
Yeah, and really going into last season, I think Cory can remember this. Everything you're hearing about the receivers, it was kind of like, I don't know, they have a lot of growing to do. No, there's a lot of adjusting. Like the funny thing with Penn State is you never really hear reports from camp that this group sucks, they're awful. You don't really hear that.
You just don't hear anything from those groups.
Yeah, you just don't hear anything where like, well, they have some growing to do, I don't know. And then you're kind of like, that doesn't sound so good.
Right.
That's kind of, you have to know what to listen for. But you haven't heard that as much this season, which is interesting. I mean, Harrison Wallace, I heard him at Penn State Media Day, and he just sounds like he's ready to be the number one guy. And I think with him, he just needs to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Like every time it feels like he's getting something, building something, he gets hurt. And it's not his fault, but I just want to see him stay healthy. And I think if he does, we all know the ability he has. He's tall and he can run. And he's a good route runner.
And they've always found a way to get open when they needed him to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he always found a way to get open on the crossing routes and the out routes. Yeah. Look, we always talk about Julian Fleming and when Keandre Lambert-Smith left, et cetera, but nobody benefited more than Trey Wallace with Keandre Lambert-Smith leaving. I mean, has the most basically experience now on the team, even over probably Julian Fleming, and was the number 2 beforehand. So like the ball's there. You just got to see if he'll take it.
Yeah, Fleming actually had similar issues at Ohio State staying on.
Right. Which, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, does give me some concerns about the longevity of the season. Like, do I think Penn State's wide receivers are good on paper? Yes, I think they actually are, and I think they will be good to start the season. I mean, West Virginia last year, I haven't done my full breakdown of West Virginia yet, but don't think their DBs are anything crazy, and that showed last year. And we all thought the receivers were going to be great. And so I would not be surprised if the receivers have a good day against West Virginia, but will they be able to sustain that over a course of a season? That's really the bigger question to me. And part of that's the injury concern with Wallace and Fleming.
Yeah. God, looking at that West Virginia game, I don't think there was ever a big 180 on how we were feeling after that game compared to like mid-October, because we were all complaining about the defense.
Yes.
And it ended up West Virginia had a pretty good offense, and that's why. And it was first game of the year. Things are always a little weird.
Malik McClain,
and we were feeling so good about the receivers. Yeah, Malik McClain.
That's the best play of the season. He just right there, done. Didn't do anything really after that. Just wild. But so anyway, that's my thought on that. I want to mention, Sean, before we get out of here, about Drew Aller, because I feel like we didn't talk. I don't think we literally mentioned Drew Aller until right now in the hour or whatever show we've had, which might be a record. Look, I haven't heard anything as far as like he's thrown the ball better or anything like that. I have heard he's more vocal and he's becoming more vocal, so that's good to hear. And the second thing that we heard was James Franklin made the comment that Drew Aller is going to be asked to do things that he's not his best at, and Bo Prabila is going to be asked to do things that he's not the best at, which to me means Bo's going to have to throw it some and Drew's going to have to run it some. We've seen some film of Drew Aller running some speed options and stuff like that. I think that's definitely going to be in the game plan. And I'm just look, it's not a surprise, but a lot of what Penn State wants to do this year is on Drew Aller's shoulders. I don't think, I don't think you're going to be able to sit here at the end of the 2024 season and push the blame off to somebody else like maybe we did last year. Although I didn't really do it. I still blame Drew Aller for a lot of things. But you're not going to be able to blame the offensive coordinator. Yes, the offensive line isn't going to be as good, but I think they're going to be able to scheme away from it. I think the running backs are going to have a bounce back year, and I think out of default the receivers and tight ends have to be better. So if the offense doesn't improve, I don't think you can blame anyone besides Drew Aller. Just a fact of it. And so that's my biggest question mark still, Sean. Is he ready to do what it takes as far as, the intangibles, as well as, making the big plays and throwing the ball deep when he has the opportunity and not being afraid when he's getting rushed? All those things to me are still the biggest question mark. And that is why, no, we're not previewing the season tonight. That is why I'm still on the fence about my whole season predictions, because I haven't heard enough yet. And even if I heard stuff, Sean, like, we wouldn't really believe anything about Drew Aller in camp anyway. So I don't know. That's where I'm at with the Drew Aller thing. But I think it's interesting. We haven't heard a bunch. Like, remember last year we were hearing, he hasn't thrown an interception yet. Not hearing stuff like that this year. Maybe he's throwing more interceptions.
Maybe he should throw more interceptions. I'm kidding.
Never forget when everyone was convinced us that the Indiana interception was the best thing that ever happened to Drew Aller.
Yeah. I think first off, just seeing him, he's gonna run more. He's definitely trimmed down. I don't think he's ever had bad weight on him or anything, but I don't think he's not as built as he was. He's built more like he's going to be running. And just like you said, you saw him running speed options and the limited visibility that the media has in practice. There's going to be more of an emphasis on the run game in general. From everything that I've heard, everything I know about Andy Kotelnicki, they're going to more. And I think that includes Drew. And I do think, not to open up old wounds, but the receivers served as a bit of a whipping boy last year for people. And I think a lot of people just can't comprehend that the 5-star quarterback didn't play that great at that time. So when we needed him, and that was also part of it. It wasn't the whole thing, but it was part of it. And we need more from him. And I hear what you're saying too. You got to take some training camp reports with a grain of salt. If Drew was lighting it up in practice, and we haven't really heard that. We haven't heard that he hasn't been. We really haven't heard much of anything about.
The only thing, Sean, I've heard about that specifically was last year the defense whooped the offense all season long in practice. And this year I've heard it's a little bit more balanced. That's the only sort of indication as far as offensive success that I've heard.
And we've heard that since the spring. So we heard that the offense was winning almost, if not 50% of the battles. And we're hearing that again in the summer, which is a good sign too, of just the offense in general, that the offense is already advancing. Like, you look back to 2016, it took a month before Jomo's offense really got going. There were times that they, outside of the pick game, that they just looked a little disjointed, if not lost. Think of the Michigan game off the top of my head. I'm hoping, and we can't afford to be looking like that to start the season, because we have a tough opponent with one, and it's gonna be a tough game. And we're gonna have to be able to score at least some points, I think.
But just the bottom line, like, you're not gonna beat and I've said this for a while, you're not going to beat Ohio State unless you score at least 28 points. You're not going to beat Michigan unless you score at least 24 or 21 points. It's just what it is. And then you need to be averaging over 30 points per game as an offense. You just have to be. That's just the case. Penn State
age, yeah.
Penn State guy had a good comment here. He said, I fear Drew Aller is like Joe Milton or DJ Uiagalelei, huge arm but inconsistent. I mean, Penn State guy, we've preached this for a while that is a concern of ours. There are some times where he does have nice touch, but consistency is a big part of the game. I mean, Trace McSorley didn't have consistency either. So if you're not going to have those things, you need to make up for it with a couple other intangibles, and we haven't really seen if Drew Aller has those things yet or not. So, kind of a somber way to end it, Sean.
Yeah, and I want to see, like, you talk about Trace, and I could even bring Cliff into this. Yeah. One of the things that I want to see from Drew is have a bit of a swagger. Like, he just seemed so mechanical at times all last season. And, like, he was almost, like, he was afraid to make a mistake.
Loosey-goosey, baby, loosey-goosey.
You gotta be. And, yeah, did that get Trace and Cliff in trouble sometimes? It did. But you never felt like you were out of a game with one of those guys as your quarterback. And you should never feel like you're out of a game when you're just down 8 points. And I'll always think back to standing there in Beaver Stadium. It was like 17-9 at that point or something. And I just felt like the game was lost. You should never, ever feel that way, ever. And I did. I can't help it. It just felt like a lost cause. You shouldn't feel that way.
Penn State guy, this is, don't know where this is coming from, said that the defense whipped the offense in the scrimmage this weekend. Offense only scored 3 points. So, but Sean, I agree with what you said there. I was going to go down a rabbit hole on the Michigan cheating thing. I think we've been on long enough where I don't feel like doing that. Just know that Michigan cheated. More stuff's coming out that they cheated. Maybe I'll save that rant. Maybe I'll just save that for TikTok, honestly.
Quick, do you think the title gets stripped?
I think so.
So I do too.
Yeah. I think I'll post that on TikTok for those that are following over there. It's a little bit more of a rant that would fit TikTok better. But yeah, they cheated, and more continues to come out as far as the Stallion situation, as far as more recruiting violations during COVID, dead periods. Not great, Bill. Not great for them.
And how about them having Harbaugh at the first game of the season? They're just so brazen.
Buddy, good old Sour Patch Kid James Noter just commented, Corey, why is Liam Clifford so good in college football 25? I actually haven't played the game yet. Haven't bought it yet. I was meaning to. Don't really know. I've actually heard the game has not. Some of my buddies have said it's not great. I think like from the, I've heard from like the appearance and even the gameplay is pretty good. But as far as like diving deep into things, it's pretty shallow as far as its quality. But
yeah, I haven't gotten it yet. I still need a PlayStation 5. So
yeah. Thanks to Rich and Devin who did comment on Twitter. So you can comment on X, I guess. I just can't on my little thing here, but you can comment on there. So, Sean, any final thoughts before we get out of there? Again, I'll just reiterate. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. And if you didn't hear, we will be doing a joint show season preview breakdown with Landon Tangwa, former Penn State offensive lineman. We'll be doing one side of the ball on his show and one side of the ball on our show. And that will be out. I think we're filming next week, so that will be out a little bit after that. So, Sean, any final thoughts?
I got nothing else. Again, congratulations to the married man himself, Cory Lestochi. And yeah, we're almost here, guys. So stay with us. There's going to be obviously a lot coming up here.
All right. Well, again, I wanted to give a huge shout out to everyone on YouTube. This was a really engaged YouTube chat this time, made it really fun. So we really appreciate that. And we will catch you guys next time. For Shawn, Kane, I'm Cory Lestochi. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. See you, everybody.